Okay, for this deck tech, we have Drone Strike. Technically a black-red creature-based aggro deck, but it is actually pretty much colorless aggro, as this is all Eldrazi. If you liked Battle for Zendikar and the Devoid mechanic, boy howdy is this the deck for you. The only creature that is not an Eldrazi in the entire deck is Welder Automaton, a 2-mana 2/1 that has an activated ability for 3 and a red. It deals 1 damage to each opponent, so if the game goes long, this is weirdly enough one of your win conditions, as turn after turn you can just keep pinging your opponent for however much you can pay 4 mana. Going into the Eldrazi, at the low end we have Sludge Crawler. For a single black, you get a 1/1, Devoid. It also has Ingest, so whenever it deals damage to your opponent, they exile the top card of their library. And it has colorless Fire Breathing, so for 2 mana, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so it can be a decent threat as the game drags on. Next we have Forerunner of Slaughter, a 2 mana for black-red, 3/2 colorless creature, so pretty good rate on that already. And for another mana, target colorless creature gains haste until end of turn, so it definitely makes all of your creatures that follow much more threatening immediately. One of those creatures could be Sky Scour, a 2 mana flyer with Devoid. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, Sky Scour gets +1/+0 until end of turn, which is also the same rider on this here Kozilek Sentinel, a little more defensive, a 1/4 without flying, but it has the same thing. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. All of these spells over here, you'll notice, are colorless, as they all have Devoid or are an artifact. Dominator Drone comes next over here, another ingest creature, and whenever it enters the battlefield, if you control another colorless creature, again, all of these, each opponent loses 2 life. So everything works off being colorless, and as long as you have colorless things, it gets real bad for your opponent real fast. Flare Drone over here, whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield under your control, target opponent loses 1 life. And lastly, or almost lastly, Duststalker is a very funny one. It is a 4 mana 5/3 with Devoid and Haste, so it's a very aggressive creature. At the beginning of each end step, if you control no other colorless creatures, you would have to bounce it to your hand. However, that's probably not going to be a problem in this deck. Rounding out at the top end, and another big finisher, we have Barrage Tyrant, a 5 mana 5/3 this time, that is also colorless. It has the ability for 2 and a red and sacrifice another colorless creature, all of these. Barrage Tyrant deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player. You'll notice all the Eldrazi tend to have a pretty big power. This guy's 3/1, 3/2, 3/2, 5/3. You can pump up these. All of these get bigger the more colorless creatures you play, so you can start throwing creatures at your opponent's face and taking them down pretty fast. Rounding out the deck, we just have a couple of ways to clear the way for these guys attacking. Magma Spray, a very efficient 1 mana shock that only hits creatures, but if the creature would die, it gets exiled. And then Magma Jet, 2 mana shock that can go anywhere, but it also has the rider that you get to scry to, so if you're starting to flood out a little bit, it's a good way to even out your draws. That's Drone Strike, technically one of the mostly only colorless decks we have in this format, even though it is technically black-red. But if you like Eldrazi, we have found a way in battle decks for you to get your wish.